Oh, here I am, and I'm not even ready. How bad is that?
This song is called Asynchronous Ontology for Dummies. Circles.
But I'm trying
Round it up.
to
Go.
learn the song.
There is no try. There's only do.
Well, I don't know about the meaning crisis. Left, right, black, white, or other vices. Which Jesus Christ is right, or if we're all saved. From my perspective, a proposition, participate procedurally, run in circles, remembering body. We're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping them damn agriculture. Oh boy, holy cannoli. All right, we're getting there.
You wrote the song, sir. Please, sir.
I wonder if, from my perspective, the proposition, participate procedurally, running in circles, remembering body. We're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping. Oh, shit,
Shish kebab.
you know, tips of my fingers. They go. Not this one, but that's kind of go. Kind of numb.
Here we go.
I don't know about the meaning crisis, left, right, black, white, or other vices, which Jesus Christ is right, or if we're all saved. From my perspective, proposition, procedurally running, participate procedurally, running in circles, remember everybody, we're in the age of decay. Symbolically speaking, the reapers are reaping. And microphones are whispering sweetly. We're all in pursuit and need heavy of the beat. Red pill, blue pill, red pill, Martian, Venom tea. Red and peel, got one and number two. We're all the same damn thing. So clean your room, repent on sin. Ontology for dummies, the bird's eye view. You really knew, cause you really say. Oh. Yeah. All right. I think I should be done with that because my fingers are
All my
being
fingers and
bitches.
toes.
Straight up bitches.
the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. Even the fatherless is embraced by the Father. We're coming home, coming home. We're coming home, coming home. Even the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. Even the fatherless is embraced by the Father. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. The table is set. I will sit down, surrounded by friends, and feast. The table is set. We will sit down, surrounded by friends, and feast. Even the sparrow finds a place by your altar. Even the wanderer who roams. Even the fatherless is embraced by the Father. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. We're coming home. Coming home. The table is set. We will sit down, surrounded by friends.
All right, it is indeed Friday. I'm a little bit early. My schedule during these vacation weeks is a little chaotic. There are church things to do. There are family coming in. I try to adjust my schedule according to all of it, and so I never quite know what I'll be able to do. Hence, I didn't assemble an estuary crew this morning. I just kind of looked around this morning to see what my adult children are going to be doing. Some of them are going to be working from my living room, and others of them are sleeping in, and others of them are at their jobs. So I thought, well, I can sneak into the office and do a little live stream. I don't know if I'll do it all the way to noon or not. I don't have an estuary crew assembled, so I thought I'd talk a little bit about the fact that I have, whoops, get up there. There we go. I have restarted writing on my Substack. The previous posting to this one was March. I've decided that this is probably something I'm going to do more of, partly because one of the things that I realized, I've noticed years of doing YouTube now, that the medium is the message. The mediums afford different things. I recently had Jared Henderson on the live stream, and Jared I didn't know he was a YouTuber. He invited me to do a thing in Austin this coming spring, which I will do, and still have some more ideas about what I'm going to talk about. But when he does his YouTube, he has, nice 15-20 minute compressed things, and that's a really good thing. Some of YouTube is nicely packaged, edited, polished video essays, and that's a fine thing, and it's a thing on its own. It doesn't tend to be what I do. What I do is much more rambly. I use YouTube to sort of think out loud, to get feedback from people, to get comments, to do all this kind of thing. So I don't know if I'll ever do anything else with YouTube, but I have, before I ever did YouTube, I did quite a bit more blogging, which involves writing, and writing involves sitting down and organizing your thoughts and sort of coming to a reasoned argument. One of the Substackers that I read quite faithfully is Richard Beck's Substack. And before he was on Substack, he was on WordPress and various other platforms. His experimental theology blog, which I very much like, I've used it in past videos. He's been on the channel. I don't know quite what's going to happen to Living Stones in the next year. The financial question is, continues to loom. And at this point, the church, obviously continues to want to keep going. The church wants to keep its facility probably as long as it can. The church wants to keep me as long as it can. And what this probably means is that at some point in the next year or two, I'm going to need to develop a new source of income. And so I've got a variety of things that are possibilities, but one of the sort of low-hanging fruits is Substack, where I would actually take more time to sit down, collect thoughts, and develop arguments. And so that's some of what I did. And I think there will always be an organic relationship between sort of my monologue, rambly commentary YouTube videos and the Substack articles. The Substack articles will tend to be focused, distilled, better packaged, more concise, whereas YouTube will continue to be rambly. And part of the reason for that is what I gain from rambling on YouTube are usually insights that I won't have them when I start the video. I don't know what the video is going to be about until I end the video, because as I go over material and rethink thoughts, I have insights, and then those insights sort of continue one video to another. And that's sort of what I've done. And I've also noticed just the different audiences for different things. So obviously there is a following the ranty, rambly, insight provoking material that I do on YouTube, but much of my relational and professional and ecclesiastical community isn't going to sit and listen to an hour or two of me being all over the place while they wash the dishes. And I've known that right from the start, because in some ways my YouTube channel started because I was listening to 2 hours of Jordan Peterson and getting insights and finding things that I thought were valuable and wanting to talk to someone about it. And many of my colleagues didn't want to talk about it because, quite reasonably, they have the kinds of jobs where they can't listen to 2-hour videos, or they're not spending a lot of time in the car, or they're not doing the dishes, or they don't. I've noticed that, for example, when my wife and I travel, my wife and I love going on just these long road trips through the amazing American West. And I'm happy to put on an audiobook, and I can quite happily drive and listen to an audiobook and sort of do both those things. But my wife, she's like, if she's driving, she says, I can't really pay attention to the audiobook while I'm driving. I've just noticed that people are wired differently. And so I've often thought that if I want to connect with other parts of my relational network, my professional network, my ecclesiastical network, and sort of develop more influence beyond just my little YouTube channel, I thought it would be good to at some point write. But the thing is that writing takes time, and I sort of think there are two kinds of writers in the world. They're sort of vomiters and editors. I'm much more of a vomiter, which I think is probably obvious by my YouTube channel, where no, it's probably not about the banner. Maybe I'll talk about the banner a little bit. Maybe I'll highlight this. Where I'll like this morning. So I woke up early, usually holidays, family stays up late because we just sit around and talk and do things together. But I like to sort of keep my wake up hours about the same so that when the holiday ends, it isn't such a rude adjustment back to normal living with my wife going to work early in the morning and the kids are all gone. So I wake up early, and usually when I wake up early, I have a lot of thoughts, and so it's a good time to write. So I just banged out this Substack. Took a little bit of time, maybe hour and a half, maybe hour, something like that. It had been on my mind from the continuing to process the Sam Harris Ross Douthat conversation, which sent me back to the Sam Harris Tom Holland conversation, not just the little 20 minutes that they put on YouTube, but the whole hour and a half that they spoke, because that really was a very excellent conversation between Sam Harris and Tom Holland, the whole thing. So I re-listened to the whole thing while I was driving around picking up people from the airport and such. And one of the things that I noticed is this idea of two postures in Christianity. I'll talk about it in a minute. Now I'm more talking about Substack. So I thought, this is a good thing. And the struggle I have with writing, though, is always once I start, I want to sort of keep going. But one of the things that I appreciate about Richard Beck's Substack is that he sort of nicely serializes a good arc. And so I thought maybe I'd play around with that method with this topic, because there are sort of these elements to the arc that I want to get in. And Substack does that rather nicely. Substack also obviously has the whole question of monetization. And while Substack has been pestering me for a long time to monetize, I hadn't been really using the platform. And I have a love-hate relationship with Substack monetization because I tend to read a lot of Substacks. I do pay more for content on Substack than I tend to on YouTube, which is interesting. I don't know why. But, for example, I pay for Mary Harrington's Substack. I pay for Rod Dreer's Substack. I pay for Louise Perry's Substack. I have paid for Paul Kingsnorth's Substack, but he sort of put his on pause. Martin Shaw has lovingly giving me a free version of his Substack, which I read. And he also sent me an advanced copy of his book. So part of what I'm thinking is that if I sort of go part-time with Living Stones, because how to actually sort of sift out my employment relationship with Living Stones is going to get interesting, because on one hand, I would do everything I already do at Living Stones for free because I love doing it. But the whole purpose of ministerial salaries, if you read the Christian Reformed Church Order, is to free up the pastor from not having to seek other employment. Well, if Living Stones is in a position where they can't actually afford to support me full time, then I am going to seek other employment, but I generally want to seek other employment that is going to allow me to do as much at Living Stones as I can. But that will also mean that I'm going to have to, unless I do other things like actually work for, I now and then get little intimations from other churches about hiring part of my time. And I've done that in the past. I've sublet myself from Living Stones to other churches and organizations that, for example, wanted to buy 10 hours a week. That's sort of where the banner comes in. The banner put out a call for basically an interim editor. And I actually saw the rate of pay that the banner was offering and thought, I could probably make more money on YouTube and Substack. So if the purpose is fundamentally making some income to relieve Living Stones of the burden of my salary, I probably would be better spent writing on Substack than in the Banner. Although if the Banner wants to pick up some articles, I know the Laura Copley is the interim editor, and I think she's going to do a terrific job. I really like Laura, so she's the interim editor. Now, what happens in terms of the Banner looking for a full-time editor? It'll be interesting to see what that process looks like. The interim editor basically is sort of hired by the comms director at the denomination and probably the executive, the general secretary. So, but when they do the full search for the regular editor of the Banner, Laura probably has sort of a front seat because she's doing the interim. And if that goes well, that'll look favorably in terms of hiring her full time for the regular editor. But we'll see. We'll see. When that goes out, I'll again think about if I want to throw my hat into that process. The thing about the interim editor position was it started right now, and I knew that right now I'm just busy between Living Stones and YouTube and Estuary and all of that to carve out another 40 hours a month to put into the Banner. Just wasn't probably going to happen. If I would apply to be editor, the regular editor of the Banner, which I think is still a part-time gig, that would then I would have to really weigh that. But I don't have any experience putting together print media. I certainly have a lot of ideas, and I certainly have some experience writing. But I'm on the fence in terms of what I want to do with respect to the Banner, and if in fact I would be just better served continuing to, if I'm going to do any writing, let's say doing it on Substack, and then hopefully I've just always sort of waited to think about book publishing until after I retire. Books are I don't know that anyone. Well, let's talk about the Pareto distribution in books. The vast majority of people who write books make almost no money from the book that they write. There are exceptions to that. But the reason you write a book is because you want to further develop an argument or an idea and you want to share it with the world. But economically, it's probably a losing proposition compared to doing things like Substack, unless you're a significantly major author. And then you've got the question of, do you want to work with a publishing house who potentially could afford some things to you? But publishing has also been tremendously disrupted by the internet. And yet self-publishing sort of has a stigma about it. So I haven't sorted through all of those things. And basically I had decided a long time ago that if I was going to spend the kind of focus time in putting together a book, I'll probably wait until retirement and see what retirement looks like. So then I would have, what is retirement for me? I don't know. What was retirement for my father? A lot of ministers don't really retire. They just don't have to do some of the administrative chores of running a church and taking care of a building. That takes a fair amount of my time here at Living Stones, is just taking out the garbage, putting in the garbage, fixing broken windows, opening gates, closing gates, just managing all of the stuff that a little church has to manage, a little church that has its own building. Because while we have a guy who comes and cleans once a week, at this point, we don't really have much of a team in terms of property management. And so a lot of that stuff sort of falls to me, which is okay. A lot of it's just little stuff, but I'm not particularly good at it. And so it just takes time. So yeah. So, okay. Well, let's talk about the Substack a little bit, and then maybe I'll drop the link. And then if anybody wants to chat, we can come in here and chat. Then anybody who watched the video that I released on Christmas morning probably won't be too surprised by it. Actually, though, the first point that I want to make with the piece is that one of the important things that Tom Holland has sort of illuminates and articulates in his longer conversation with Sam Harris. Now, that longer conversation with Sam Harris, I assume it's behind the paywall in Sam Harris's podcast. When that was released on YouTube, I paid the $15 so that I could have access to it, et cetera, et cetera. And it was really an excellent conversation. One of the early points that Tom Holland made, which he didn't sort of frame it. I took it and sort of framed it a little bit more starkly because I think it's really important right now in the current conversation with respect to Christian nationalism. Somebody sent me, the reason I don't wear striped shirts is because they tend to strobe. Recently, somebody sent me a news clip from Paterson, New Jersey, where I'm from, where the mayor is sort of parading Paterson as, an Islamic city in America. And that sort of, I know some people from Paterson who are really annoyed by this kind of thing. And it raises all of these questions that are sort of going round and round about Christian nationalism. The point that Tom Holland makes is that there are really two historic Christian postures towards outgroups. And one of them, this has been raised in many ways by someone like Ayaan Hirsi Ali. This particular thumbnail and title I was particularly proud of. Atheism as AIDS to the Secular Public Square. YouTube gave me an HIV/AIDS banner thing under that, even though stupid AI couldn't figure out that the video wasn't really about AIDS, but I used AIDS as a metaphor. But it was fundamentally Ayaan Hirsi Ali in her journey from a rather aggressive, socially and politically aggressive Islam in Africa to Europe, becoming a celebrity atheist on stage and just, missed by a hair, being one of the 5 horsemen of, see, that doesn't work because of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in the book of Revelation, et cetera, but sort of missed being one of them because her argument was basically one towards and for liberalism and or what the liberalism that she enjoyed and appreciated in the Netherlands, and arguing that Islam should be stopped. And then over time beginning to realize that this sort of openness, liberalism, secularism wasn't stopping Islam and couldn't. So then she becomes a Christian, and seemingly much more along the lines of an evangelical Christian, and perhaps, as coined by someone, a utilitrad, where saying that what we really need is sort of an authentic Christianity to hold back atheism. And she has this debate, of course, with Richard Dawkins, who, interestingly enough, identifies as a cultural Christian, even though sort of a confessional atheist. Tom Holland brings up in that piece, most of what Tom Holland said in that conversation with Sam Harris, you can find in a variety of other Tom Holland conversations from about 8 months ago. This was about 8 months that they had the conversation. I expect a lot of these arguments to come out in Tom's next book about the 1960s, which I'm really looking forward to. One posture could be seen by Angela Merkel, throwing open the gates of Germany wide to 1 million Syrian refugees, and as an expression of Christian hospitality towards the alien and stranger. Holland notes that while 1954 East Germans were moving west to escape, I had to do a little bit of research to dig this up, to escape communist enclosure, her father, a Lutheran minister, moved his family east to pastor behind the Iron Curtain for the sake of the gospel. One might see an inheritance of a vivid gospel witness displayed in her leading a secular German nation to take 1 million Islamic refugees in their hour of need, Seeing Merkel's move as an expression of Christian charity, visibly dissolved, yet still potent within Christian secular culture, is very much aligned with Holland's main thesis. Christianity had stealthily hidden its moral DNA within unwitting heirs of Latin Christendom, with the outcome of even confessional atheists like Sam Harris, assuming that self-donating acts of human generosity are expressions of self-evident morality rather than a Christian inheritance. But of course, new atheism arises during 9/11 and is mostly about confronting, let's say, Islamic forms of, let's call it Islamic nationalism. Now, using the word nationalism here is, you have to be a little bit cautious with it, because part of what has to be included in this needs to be the rise of the nation state and the transition that happens in modernity, and especially in the 19th century, from, let's say, old styles of autocratic, sometimes enlightened despots, and then the rise of these democratic, multi-ethnic states like the United States, and then eventually England and France, and the rise of republics. And that whole tension in the 19th century that I've spent a lot of time thinking about over the last few months. And I'm just finishing up that one book on the First World War. I want to check out a book on the Russian Revolution, because I don't know enough about that history. There's just a lot of European history, early 20th century history, that I wasn't enough aware of, but it has to do with a lot of these issues. And in that conversation with Sam Harris, Tom Holland contrasts Angela Merkel with Viktor Orban. And of course, Rod Dreher keeps doing this regularly in his Rod Dreher move to Hungary, because this is the kind of resistance that Rod Dreher is seeking, and the kind of Christian nationalist preservation that Hungary, to one degree or another, continues to pursue. Now, Hungary, of course, if you go back in the history of the 20th century, the Austrian-Hungarian Empire was one of the empires that sort of leaned against the Ottoman Empire, and for centuries sort of battled with the Ottoman Turks, stopped their advancement into Europe. And then as the weak man of Europe continued to sort of fall apart, Russia and the Austria-Hungarian Empire really tried to sort of gobble up pieces of it. That made England and France a little bit nervous, provoking the Crimean War. But then when the Ottoman Empire basically collapsed during the First World War, England and France sort of rush in to try and gobble up as much of it as they can. Russia and Greece both wanted pieces of Turkey. Russia really wanted Constantinople, but of course, the Orthodox Russian autocratic rule of the czars fell apart before Russia could have, if Russia had been able to take Constantinople and own, that whole passage out of the Black Sea, the history of the 20th century would have been vastly different. But then you have the question of, obviously, Bolshevism and communism, and that's all a piece of what happens in kind of the complete undoing and catastrophic collapse of Eastern Europe. Now, that will all sort of get pieced together, of course, after the Second World War, when victorious Stalin sort of occupies all of Eastern Europe and owns it. And then for a generation like myself, who grew up after the fall of the Iron Curtain, just a lot of mystery about that whole world. And that whole world, the mystery is sort of being relieved now with the Ukrainian war, with the flourishing of Poland, with everything that's going on in Eastern Europe, and Eastern Europe sort of coming back into bigger conversations. But of course, Hungary sits right there, and it's got a very unique history, and it's an interesting place. and you've got some Reformed Christian influences there. But of course, when the Hungarian Empire was ruled by the Habsburgs, which were deeply Roman Catholic. So there's just a ton of history that's come back online since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And now where you have a self-conscious version of orthodoxy in Putin and in Russia, now fighting that Ukraine. I mean, there's just so much going on. And this sort of arises these two postures where you have Angela Merkel that sort of expresses, let's say, a Wilsonian, a Roosevelt, but a European version of it that says, well, religion's no big thing. We can all be secular and you can have your little religious silos. And so you have all of these agreements of certain forms of liberalism that say we can keep this going. But, a later appearance of Tom Holland on trigonometry basically says, you're really sort of projecting a lot of your own categories onto Islam. It doesn't have those categories. And I think right now, in terms of the rise of orthodoxy in the United States, orthodoxy doesn't necessarily have those categories either. Tom Holland then, in the Sam Harris conversation, as he does in other places, will then go back to the 11th century and this revolution that happens with the papacy in separating the secular from the sacred and creating, sort of laying the groundwork for secularity in the world, and the Pope's basically carving out a domain that says, well, we're going to continue to develop this separation of the secular and the sacred, and the papacy is going to be the father of the sacred, but we're going to look to princes and nations to be the defender of the sacred within the secular realm. And that, of course, leads into, just continues to sort of fall apart in Europe in the modern period. The French Revolution being a very notable example. But even when you get to the First World War in French history, there's so much anti-clericalism going on in France, especially in French politics, that, for years, let's say in the 19th century, before the First World War, obviously, where you have Italian unification, the French basically stabilize Rome for a time, and the Vatican is looking to France and Austria and the Austrian Empire to sort of safeguard, to resist Italian unification, to resist Italy becoming a republic. And then eventually France comes in and sort of stabilizes the Vatican. But France at some point then loses interest, withdraws. And of course, the Italians come in, take Rome, make it their capital, announce sort of a parliamentary monarchy, and the Pope becomes the prisoner of the Vatican, sets up that whole history. And that doesn't end, of course, until the rise of Mussolini. And even though Mussolini has no real love for the church, but needs the church politically to secure his power in Italy, and the Vatican has no deep trust of Mussolini, but they enter into a marriage of convenience whereby they can establish a concordat where the Pope will no longer be the prisoner of the Vatican, and Mussolini will do some things that the papacy is looking for. We want priests back in schools. We want restrictions on theater. We want some more moral policing in the broader culture, in the broader culture. And while Mussolini isn't a king, there's already a king, a descendant of Victor Emmanuel. Mussolini isn't a king. He's basically a strong man. You're also going to have the history in Spain of Franco, where basically the church and these fascist strongmen look at each other and say, we can work with each other, and maybe we can preserve influence of the church in this secular realm in exchange for a degree of blessing. We will bless you, Mussolini. We will bless you, Franco. And in the case of Italy, they even destroyed what had been an earlier adaptation of the papacy, which was the Popular Party in Italy, which was sort of an attempt to say, well, I guess Roman Catholics can now participate in the parliamentary system in Italy, and we're going to promote pro-Catholic candidates so that there can be Catholic influence in the parliament. One of Mussolini's conditions for making its deal with the Vatican was kill the Popular Party and back Mussolini, because the Popular Party was one of the biggest opponents of Mussolini, barring sort of his rise to autocratic rule. But of course, the papacy had long had a variety of close relationships with autocrats. And that goes all the way back to Charlemagne, where in some ways this whole thing really gets going. So, of course, with what happens in the 20th century, the Vatican can no longer continue to condemn republics and democracy. And the Vatican will then, with Vatican II, loosen its stance and soften its stance in a variety of ways. But now we're at a point where we have all these deep questions about liberalism, and we wonder, will these systems really work? And that leads us to sort of these two postures. And two great illustrations of them are Angela Merkel, who lets in 1 million Syrian refugees, and Viktor Orban, who says, no, we're not going to let them in there. We remember this history. This is a bad deal. We're going to enforce our borders, and we're going to keep Hungary for Hungarians, and Rod Dreher. We'll let Rod Dreher in too. And of course, this is a very interesting history, because if you can go back and you watch, for example, the debate on Bill Maher between Ben Affleck and Sam Harris, you sort of see these two positions, and kind of like neither of them are, say, arguing from a Christian point of view. You see secular variations of these two postures. You even see it in Richard Dawkins. And so in this has been partly the civil war within New Atheism. I remember when I talked to, this is why New Atheism sort of fell apart. Because woke kind of came up and said, no, this is what, once morality became self-evident, then suddenly you have lots of differing self-evident moralities in competition with each other. And in my conversation with James Lindsay, Lindsay sort of laid out, this is sort of why New Atheism could sort of stay united when, let's say, facing a common threat such as religion. But once the threat became sort of the, where is liberalism going, as seen sort of in the crisis around wokeness, well, then everything sort of comes apart. And a really fun video that I've pointed to quite often, they've renamed it, and they put an alien in the thumbnail, which I don't know why. It's kind of a funny thing, but that interesting conversation with Peter Boghossian and Michael Shermer and forget his name right now, but watching this debate, which all of us have seen, Christians fighting amongst themselves over these issues tend to make the debate about the Christian posture towards the stranger and the alien. As I said in the piece, there are really two, because for a very long time, Christian monarchs, Christian emperors saw it as their duty. And you can listen to King Charles III of England in his coronation vows basically promised to maintain Christian civilization. Now, how serious he takes these vows, how he conceives of Christian civilization, is liberal democracy an example of Christian civilization? Now, eventually, someone like Abraham Kuyper is going to get into this conversation because, of course, Kuyper will make the arguments that actually democracy and principled pluralism, which is where Abraham Kuyper goes, is a version of Christian civilization. And in that way, Abraham Kuyper becomes a very interesting person because he is appealed to, at least within the Christian Reformed Church, by both sides of this debate. Certain conservatives love Kuyper, often outside of the Christian Reformed Church, but CRC progressives, many of whom are no longer a part of the Christian Reformed Church, I usually call them the exiles, they also appeal to Kuyper. Kuyper has so much in him, and he straddles so many of these things that, will the real Abraham Kuyper please stand up? So I hope to get into some of these issues as I develop this line of argumentation. And this is going to require something of me. It's going to require discipline that I, unlike what I usually do with my videos, I see the next shiny new thing and then I run after it. But hopefully with Substack, I can continue to develop some of these ideas. All right, I am going to drop the link. Let's see. And I don't know how long I'm going to go here, but we can let people in and, maybe we'll see what you want to talk about. I would like to talk about these ideas if I can, but I will have to see how strictly I police them. So, yeah, I haven't been keeping up reading the comments. It's hard to monologue and read the comments at the same time. Yeah, that's true, Phlebas. Sweating bullets. Although it's fun to see. There was a certain Stephen Gradanis who left a good comment here on the Substack, which maybe perhaps someone's secret identity. Who knows? Yeah, roads are not so bad. That's right, Sandy. All right. There it is. Man up.
Whoa.
You got a song for us, Chad? You got your guitar right there.
No, I don't, but I think my thing is like, here, let me put my earbuds in because it seems to be.
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, but on my end, it's like shite.
Oh.
I'm trying. Sorry. Hang on a second.
Yeah, you sound even better now.
Oh, yeah. There we go. Oh, look at this. Check this out.
Merry
This
Christmas,
is,
Chad.
Merry Christmas. We are streaming yours onto my channel via a phone. I just played guitar over your whole monologue. I have no idea what you said. But something like modernity and the Turks and gravy with stuff. Something like that. I can't remember, but something to do with Substack, which I've been doing a little bit of myself, and I actually enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, writing does force you to focus, and which is helpful for me because I tend to not be terribly focused. So, did you have a good Christmas with your baby's first Christmas?
We did. It was really wonderful. We had we went over to my in-laws, and we had my mother-in-law made prime rib for the first time, and it was outstanding. And then she made like shrimp scampi, and then Carolyn loves like opening toys, and so I got her a harmonica, and we got her a drum and several books, and what else? Yeah, it was great. It was wonderful. and then we watched the movie something St. Louis. I'll call you when we get to St. Louis or something. Or it's an old movie from the 40s. It's with where the Merry Christmas song, "Wishing You a Merry," or
Oh,
yeah, with Judy Garland. It was really good.
oh. It's how so tell me, Chad, how is Christmas different now with a baby than it was even for you as a couple before?
I found myself like actively trying to take mental images of the moments because
Mhm.
they're very powerful. Um, they yeah, it's like I don't know. I just want to encourage people to have kids. Go have kids. Start a family. Try to learn how to not be a dick. Seek out God. Help others, and try to really lean into it. It's most of that I'm failing at like constantly, but there's a tremendous joy that happens with becoming a father.
Yeah.
Um, we're having a Christmas party at the house here tomorrow. We're doing some cleaning up around the house, and you know, actively trying to create family tradition. Uh, last year we had the Christmas party at the house, and so this year we're gonna have it again. But yeah, all that modernity, modernity has made it difficult in a lot of ways to maintain or even discover what old traditions were, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it does support other things, so it's interesting. There's a balance there of things that you can, uh, that are tremendous gifts and things that are not so tremendous. So yeah, survival, 18. You got 18,
Wow.
survival. Social 10. You get survive, half damage. Wisdom 9. Yeah, you suck. Heart 5. You also suck. You guys are, yeah. So just thought we'd
Well,
do
with you
that.
coming in talking about your baby, yeah, it's going to be hard on the heart savings throws. I was so my let's see, I had 4 of my 5 kids in um yesterday for Christmas. The 5th will come for New Year's. He and his wife will come up. They're at her family because once your kids get married, then you've got to share them with their other families. But just sitting and listening to my kids talk about past Christmases, it's fascinating how rapidly traditions form.
Mm.
We used to have a tradition of going up to the foothills and cutting a Christmas tree, but partly because of my wife's schedule and my schedule, where my wife and I are always really late to the Christmas tree thing. In fact, usually it was Christmas Eve when we'd go get a Christmas tree. And now we just discovered that Home Depot on Christmas Eve will often give you their leftover Christmas trees for nothing. So that's our new tradition. Um,
Nice.
so because we
Upcycling
never get
trees.
around to putting it up anyway, and it's my kids that want to decorate it. My wife and I don't have a lot of interest in decorating. So kids do really sort of gel Christmas in a very special way.
Yeah. Yeah, they take it, they really bring out like that thing that my dog doesn't have, or the birds don't have, which is like this connection to something greater and higher that is ineffable and very, very powerful. My daughter, she just loves like every time she sees a Christmas tree, she's like, and that's what she does, and there's a wonder there. And we went to church on Wednesday. I had to do the help serve communion and read the lectern stuff. And every time that she was there, she was really clingy to me. So turns out I'm a daddy, daddy's girl, or she's a daddy's girl.
Yeah,
I'm a daddy's girl. Yeah.
yeah,
Um, and it's incredible to be trusted that much and to
yeah,
be relied upon and to know, all you have to do is look at my own past.
yeah,
And I think this is where, I think maybe it could be useful. Just like this kind of idea can scale across different things. If we can actually like try to look with like uh in a useful way, in a deep and meaningful way, not in a way that's like wanting to tear shit down, but like just in a useful way. Like, where in my past is it likely that I'm going to screw this up? And it's like, yes. And so I have to really, I don't like, it breaks my heart to even think that I could destroy this bond that I likely will destroy on some level. And it's really hard, but it's really, that's why I was like walking into this Christmas, like, I'm like watching her, I'm watching my family, and like I'm noting my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my wife, my daughter. We're all here. The dogs are here, and we're watching this movie that none of us have seen. I'm taking note of this because it's special, and I live in a portion of time and it's in a place on the planet where it's completely possible that this is happening. And I just had like 2 pounds of freaking beef and shrimp and noodles and I wasn't drunk and it was like there's all these things. It's combinatorially explosive Christmas.
Yeah.
And then but I think the idea the Christian idea is there's something like that should be gleaned in each day if we can. It's tremendously difficult because we live in a world of people and we are people and we destroy things and we have feelings and we're sensitive and we're assholes and we got all these. Oh my god, I'm crazy, I'm insane. And yeah, sorry, tell me more about your Substack. Like, what is it that you like about it? What is it other than just like being
I
able
don't want to go
to
to. I want to stick with it. I want to stick with your theme a little bit more too, though, Chad, because one of the things, because you talk about. So one of the things that sometimes we'll do when we get together with the holidays is we'll watch videos from what we made. Oh my goodness, he never comes on our screen. We watch videos of past Christmases or past holidays, and I can't not look at some of those videos and think about ways that I didn't fulfill even my own expectations of fatherhood. And so it is true that none of us completely succeed at this. We are going to mess up as fathers, and so we should have a little bit of grace and go into it with a lot of prayer. And even if you start with high ideals, it's fatherhood is tremendously challenging, and it's you're going to have relationships with these little children as they grow up, and the world is insanely powerful. You are completely your idealism is completely outgunned by the rest of this world and all that it will bring against your children. And I've seen people try to wall off their children, and I've seen how that's turned out. And I've seen people who sort of like, well, we're going to keep it all open and they're going to have to deal, and I'm just going to try and coach them through it. It's, there's a lot of grace that is needed to navigate this world. So, yeah, a lot of prayer. But Chad, I deeply appreciate you and the spirit that you're at least daring to try by having children and raising her in the church, and you're at least daring to try. So I respect you for that. Phlebas, what say you?
I'm avoiding fatherhood right now too. Yeah, I wouldn't overthink it, Chad. I think every dad's different, basically. Sometimes I tell stories about my dad and things that I think are really minor. Other people are like, "Oh, that's terrible," and it's how we end up being unique. I think they all fall short, and when your dad's doing the best that he can. So, yeah, I love my dad, but other people, yeah. Anyways, I'll leave it there. Can we go to the Substack PVK?
Sure, we can go to the Substack.
With your Merkel thesis, I better stay on camera here. When she makes a move like that, bringing in whatever it is at this point. I don't know. Is it just 1 million or is it more immigrants without, much background check and stuff like that? Do you see that as, now that you've thought about this more, do you see that as violating, that sacred secular divide, or how has that changed your mind about secularity? Was secularity ever real? Like, where do we get these neutral morals and values? Was it ever a thing, or we're just realizing it wasn't a thing? Or when she makes a move like that, do you see that as a violation? Or I'm trying to think of other examples of people who try to live out their values, because you were talking about the difference between living an individual Christian life and then scaling that up and being like, actually, the country should give all its money to the poor or something like that,
Well, right there, you're exactly right. These are really difficult questions and tensions historically within Christian civilizations. And it's even difficult biblically, because you've got the whole Old Testament where you have this, these, the nation of Israel, and God has a kingdom. And so I think in many ways we've not really sorted through this stuff, which of course makes Kuyper important, because Kuyper did try to sort through this stuff to a degree. Now, did he do it perfectly? Not. Even his scheme implemented in the Netherlands of pillarization hasn't really endured, because some of the left in the CRC will argue for principled pluralism, but given where the conversation has gone in the last 30 years, even a lot of the promotion of Kuyperian principled pluralism that I heard sort of promoted when I was at Calvin College, there's some real questions as to the practicality of that.
Yeah.
And of course, so all of these issues are to the fore, yet, can then people want to sort of rush in and say, well, maybe we should go the route of a state church again. Well, that all crumbled for a reason. And, for as much as people would like to shout down Vatican II, I don't see Italy, France, Spain, Austria going back to systems that we saw in early modernity. And remember that, the divine rule of kings, as sort of promoted by, French, Austrian, Russian autocrats, I don't think we're going to see the return to that anymore either. Part of the reason those autocracies failed was just that the state became too much for an autocrat to manage. And so if you look at the performance of the Habsburgs, or the German, the Prussian monarchs, or the Russian czars, those are not good. Those political systems lost the wars for very real reasons, in ways that even the French did better at, and certainly the English and the Americans did better at. So there's no turning back the clock. So it's good that we're looking at these issues, and it's good that there's, I think, really healthy pushback against sort of a facile secular liberalism that, for the most part, won the 20th century, seeing that, well, secularity itself was an invention of the papacy, which is Tom Holland's thesis, sort of reimagines where this thing should go. And it also seems like we're not getting any leadership from the Vatican in this. Are we getting any leadership from, do Protestant denominations, or can there actually be Protestant elites now that can offer leadership to this? So where are we going to find leadership in these questions? And I think right now,
not beyond their charisma.
yeah, well, and so it's interesting that Kuyper there still seems to be interest in Kuiper, but I don't know that Kuiper necessarily offered a solution, because his implemented solution didn't really hold back everything that would happen in the Netherlands in the 20th century. I think Kuiper would likely be horrified if he looked at the Netherlands today compared to his vision of what he wanted. Kuiper was very much a 19th century man. And so we're not going to answer, even within the Dutch Calvinist groups, we're not going to answer these questions by just pointing to Abraham Kuiper. So,
No, I think a lot of these church Christian nationalist conversations are pretty funny because they're totally interior and academic and completely disconnected. Like the biggest Reformed denomination, they might have 3,000 people interested in the conversation. And nobody in the pews actually is. Anybody who even uses the term is way to the right of anybody in the pews. So it's a total fantasy. It's interesting historically, but I think it's a total fantasy.
Yeah.
I think one of the things is changing with people younger than Michael and I maybe is that democracy is no longer seen as a form of salvation like it was for your people of your generation. And whether that's for good or ill, it's probably for ill. But nobody really believes in bringing democracy to the Middle East to save them anymore.
yeah.
So I think the post-liberalism thing is real because it's happening, not because anybody's idea about what it's going to look like is going to come to fruition.
Yeah. I don't think, generally speaking, with these massive questions like this, for the most part, we only arrive at answers afterwards, after something has sort of come about, and it would usually be intensely imperfect. So, but I think overall, I think we're going to see the continued evolution of liberalism. In some ways, a lot of the arguments of the Dutch Calvinists that there is no vacuum that secularism maintains. There are always values. I mean, it's been people of our tradition that have been making that point for a very long time, that secularism isn't neutral. But and then you get into the question of institutions, because as you said, Phlebas, that there's who is having this conversation and who is leading with respect to this conversation. Now, you might argue that, J.D. Vance right now is sort of the leading implementer of at least a vision, but yet, is his vision Catholic? I don't know that his vision is Catholic. Because even though, just like how many people who decide to become Catholic or Orthodox, just because now they are worshiping in one of these houses, is J.D. Vance a Catholic leader? I think, he's part of what happens in a democratic system like ours is that your leaders just continue to follow certain spirits in the culture because it gets them votes. Okay, that's scary. So we do very much have a sense that we don't have even Christian structures or platforms upon which Christian leaders will affect change. And I think this goes partly to Aaron Wren's, long-standing argument that evangelicals don't have elites, not sufficient to actually helping evangelicals craft a coherent approach to these questions. And so what we tend to be left with are Christian influencers. And Doug Wilson will get attention, but then a lot of these guys just sort of become, attractions for
Yeah.
squabbling, and we don't see a lot of light.
And Doug will be dead in 10 years, and his followers are not Doug. So it'll be over. Hey,
Yeah.
Michael.
Oh,
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Michael?
well, I would say, definitely like that Hyperianism of a sort has been a big influence on me, and I've mostly been probably broadly would say conservative, but the conservative Hyperianism of like Doug Wilson and some, is a little bit well, he's actually kind of the bad example, but everybody who is further right than him, because he's got a lot more nuance, I think, in his thought than many of his followers do. But anybody that's to the right of him and into the Christian nationalism, obviously, I'm kind of nervous about their ideas, but also, like Phlebas is saying, very I don't think there's much chance of them coming to light if they don't moderate their vision and expand it a little more in a pluralistic direction. So that's pretty hopeful thing. But it's been interesting. So I've been thinking about how he's coming in that same time frame when like there's so much other stuff going on, Darwinism, and then also like the second Great Awakening, and like so even you got Mormonism comes around very close in the same time period. And, it seems like it was just everybody was recognizing like whatever the old system is doesn't work. And it's whatever kind of excuse you can get to start a new one is, people took it. And that was even the thing. It was like even Joseph Smith's thing, practically speaking, like, you can just say he probably made it up. He created a useful fiction, but the reason he did it is because he saw there was all this revival happening, but then all this bickering between the different branches of Christianities where revival was occurring. And so he's like, well, let's just have a new vision that will unite the people. And I think maybe one of the good things about Kuyper and the people that came after him is that it was more rooted in a historical idea, and it had some legs to stand on in that way. But it's not maybe the particular ways that it has played out so far, but it's a better basis for giving people permission to try new things. And that's where I see it even as like its most useful basis for today. Like, it's because people get so trapped in those like historical arguments about like tradition and if there's precedent for all those things. And it's like, I think if you don't think there's anything at all, like maybe you could say like it was the devil's idea, not God's. But if you don't think like anything significant about the world changes with like a creation of the nation of Israel, in the perception of like regular people who open up their Bible and keep reading the word Israel over and over.
Well,
like,
especially given dispensationalism and its popularity.
Yes. Which was another one that came about at that same exact time. So I think that, I think it's definitely probably something that's good to be resourced, and some of the older streams maybe have not borne as much fruit, but maybe going back to the source of Kuyper and some of the other people that followed him is a good call. And I see some of that emerge too. Even I think like if you look at the whole like Charlie Kirk thing, and he just had the book that was just released about the Sabbath. He just finished it.
About this. What are you talking about?
So it was just released. He had finished writing it, whatever, last summer.
Oh.
And his book, it's called Stop in the Name of God, but it's about keeping the Sabbath, but not as like but it's very much sort of I haven't read it yet because I didn't find it in Audible, but it sounds like it's very much like, why did God put this Sabbath idea in there? It's not just because he wants people to obey this thing, but there's a reason for it, and it has something to do with human flourishing and God's plan and created order. And so like that's an important principle that the church needs to maintain. about rest. Like, so, so it's very much it doesn't have to be, it's not about arguing if it's Saturday or Sunday, but it's like, you got to have a day where you're actually resting, and this will help your life. And so it's like, that seems like an emergence of a very Kuyperian kind of idea out of a evangelical kind of space.
Yeah.
And obviously his connection with politics being much more grassroots, I think it's trending towards an elite coming in that area.
That's interesting. That's very interesting. I didn't know about this book. Or interesting. Yeah. And Sabbatarian, I mean, in the Christian Reformed Church, Phlebas and I both know Sabbatarianism was a very strong identity marker for the Christian Reformed Church. And I think after many of those identity markers had been taken apart in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, there is a sense of maybe we need these identity markers again, just so that we can have a body together. Whereas, again, a big part of the issue is that where do Christians find their leadership? And here with Charlie Kirk, you have, a lot of people are looking to him. But of course, a martyred leader, as you saw with Martin Luther King Jr., a martyred leader can be a very convenient thing. I used to, in the Dominican Republic, when I was working with the Haitians, one of the things that I noted was some of my most difficult pastors were dead pastors, because everyone rose and spoke on their behalf. Oh, saintly pastor so-and-so always wanted this. And it's like, well, saintly pastor so-and-so is no longer here to speak for himself. And you, his widow or his son or the preacher who inherited his church, now leverages his saintly aspect to try to promote such and such. So
kind of like Kuyper.
Kind of like Kuyper.
Like when you were at Calvin, Paul, are people reading the original stuff? Are they reading Kuyper?
No.
Yeah.
Kuyper, Calvin. Yeah. I mean, especially Kuyper. You'd hear his name bandied about all the time, but I don't think once anything by Kuyper was put in front of us. With the only book that tended to be mentioned was the Stone Lectures.
Yeah, there's like there's a big resurgence with Bavinck right now. Yeah. And I watched something with John Bolt, and he said when he did his Bavinck PhD, there was 4 guys in the world who had done PhDs. So, and 2 of them in the CRC, but it was like non-existent. And now people are going back to Bavinck like this is the tradition when it was missing for 50 years.
Yeah. And ironically, the Acton Institute in Grand Rapids, which isn't a CRC thing, they've really tried to translate a whole bunch of Kuyper and sort of bring him in. And, it just drove some people in the Christian Reformed Church nuts when Charles Colson picks this up. And then when a lucrative donation to Calvin Seminary establishes the Colson chair of systematic theology at the seminary, just that just roiled CRC politics. But again, and all of this leads to, obviously, in the CRC, the division that has happened since Synod 2022 till now, where many of those voices that argued for Kuyper, they're no longer in the CRC. And so it's going to be interesting to see the way this goes.
I think Michael's point about assessing the past is good, because now the streams are so polluted. A minor thing, I just learned that Sproul went to the Free University in the Netherlands and studied under Berkhauer, which I didn't know. Really? Yeah. So that was kind of interesting.
That's super interesting.
I know. Anyways, but this historical analysis, all these people are, reading Kuyper and reading Bavinck now, and they're not in a tradition that grew out of it. Or on the politics thing, one of the things that happened during your last election was somebody convinced the Amish people to vote, which for Trump.
Really?
Yeah, for Trump. Yeah, somebody convinced, I don't know, like 200,000 of them.
Pennsylvania is a swing state.
Yeah, but it's like a huge violation of Anabaptist principles to get involved. Once you voted for the guy, now you're responsible for his decisions. So people are all cheering this, and I'm going, no, they just forgot who they were. Like it's basically their destruction. Next election, there's going to be people all over canvassing the neighborhood. So so even with the like with the CRC and Reformed Christianity, you see a lot of Anabaptist influences coming into that too. So it's just a very confused mess to historically, and the people who have not changed are, I mean, they still change, as you often note, but they're sort of non-factors.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, the Catholics have rolled into town here, so let's hear from Paul and Neil.
Actually, before we go on to Catholicism, I wanted to compliment Sartori on one particular point, because I think he's spot on where he said the evangelicals are growing a hierarchy, and I think that's very true, because in my salient sphere, in like the Christian culture space, the evangelicals are killing it. With The Chosen, with other shows like Angel Studios. There was this David movie that came out over Christmas. I don't know if it's any good, but
great. It's great.
It's great.
This is my short. The most important thing I can say about it. Like, you could quibble about it, whatever you want. If that movie had existed when I was a kid, it absolutely would have been my favorite movie. And it's like the first movie that has a Disney level impact, but directed towards boys. So.
Is it made by Mormons again, though, Neil, after you recommended The Chosen?
No, it's like, well, I don't know. There might be some.
No, what's his name is the guy who made The Chosen. He's a evangelical. Dallas Jenkins. Like, there's no way with a name like Dallas Jenkins that you're a Mormon. That's just not happening. That's a Texas name.
I don't know. I can't watch it, so.
But my point is, there's a national Christian culture in evangelicalism, and it's primarily music. I mean, the music was the first thing, and like all the big Christian songs. I shouldn't say all of them, because there are Catholics and there are a few Protestants, like Chris Tomlin, but the up and coming ones are all evangelical.
Yeah.
Big Christian country influence, all that, and then I think where Disney has sort of relinquished. Where things like professional level animation and film production have become more accessible, the Christians have moved in to fill a space where the woke were, predominantly dominant 10 years ago. And so, yeah, I do sense that I think the evangelical hierarchy will be less theological and more cultural in its structure, which is probably healthy, to be honest.
Well, I was posting some of that protestia stuff. Evangelicals make culture. They tend to make low culture, but low culture is still culture. And generally speaking, a lot more people participate in it than in high culture. But, when my trip to Birmingham, Alabama, a few weeks ago was an eye opener for me when I go to this ballet Christmas presentation in this massive PCA church. And it's like, how does a PCA school afford a ballet program? And one of the things that it showed me in terms of Bible Belt America is that, generally speaking, in Bible Belt America, there are no secular culture makers in the area. If I go to the ballet in New York or San Francisco or Los Angeles, it will be in a secular stage. But in Birmingham, Alabama, ballet is on a church stage of a massive PCA. And it's like, wow, this is a whole America I've had no experience with, because I've grown up on the coasts and then Western Michigan. So, Paul, what do you have to say?
I'll just fill in more stories along the same line. So my kids watching Christmas movies, as is the case. They all love The Star, um, which sort of falls in that same David line, and it's this evangelical stuff. And we got one of the graphic novel Bible for one of the kids because they're more likely to read the Bible if there's some graphic novels. I go through a few stories. I'm like, all right, this is scriptural enough that I can I can go with it. But that's not that's really coming out of this evangelical um this this decentralized evangelical thing that's going on. But I mean, there's institutions, but it's in the realm of culture and publishing. And on my son he was watching some Santa movie and he's like, hey, he's 12. All of these Santa movies are really about belief in God, right? Um, that's the subtext. I'm like, and my wife's like, yeah, that's what's going on here. And he's like, the little children believe and the adults don't. And so I don't know about how I feel about some of these like subtext things going on in sort of the 80s, 90s movies where you're trying to sneak in the message versus The Star, which is like in your face. But you need a little of both. The institutional centers do concern me though, because I like to know who's checking the theology on some of these things. I mean, I can leaf through and like, all right, how do they deal with the institution, the Last Supper in the graphic novel Bible, and it's like, all right, there's the language is good enough for me. And then, but then there's like, you can't do that exclusively. You need, now, should we be controlling theology? I mean, the question is, what's being snuck in that's sort of a little bit off. Now, all of our concerts in my part of the world, a lot of them, the kids' concerts happen at the Mormon centers. So we have harp concerts, and they're inevitably at one of the hundreds of Mormon centers in East Phoenix. And that's interesting because there's an active thing being done by LDS to grab these cultural things and use that as a tool to proselytize. And I get it. I mean, my church does the same thing. But so there's a tension there where I like it. I like that we are getting some Christian culture that's high quality ish. That's at least competitive with the anti-Christian culture. But there's what the institutions matter, and that's going to be a theme in everything I say. So, all right,
can I throw kind of can I throw kind of a mild thumb into the mix? I want to bring in our Reformed friends. I'm going to try to I'm going to do a weave of like 3 or 4 things. Bear with me. So one thing I found to be interesting is that it seems to me that we Catholics seem to be collaborating a lot with the evangelicals. And the Protestants seem somewhat, mainline seems somewhat left out of that cultural collaboration. Like the actor who played Jesus is a Roman Catholic. You got Bishop Barron doing lots of panels with other theological folks in the Protestant realm, but I think less
Bishop
so.
Barron, is that the Charlie Kirk thing?
No, I'm just thinking of Bishop Barron, Word on Fire. Generally speaking, I haven't actually watched much Barron recently. I'm talking more broadly, and then the second weave I want to bring into this, something that Yosef said that stuck with me, where I think it was Yosef who said it in his conversation with Christian Baxter, but he said that um, his sense is that within Christianity, within Christendom, whatever that is, that relations are improving. You know, relations between Catholics and Protestants and Orthodox, etc. But the issue is that the relationships between the Jewish people and non-Jews are worsening. But I don't think it's just Jews and Gentiles. I think it's more, any other group that's considered outside of Christendom. And I suspect this is kind of the where I want to put out an idea and see what you guys think. It's like Christianity is being used as a foil for the prevalent wokeism religion. But as Christianity becomes more salient culturally, it pushes away those in the seculum that are not distinctly that are not self-proclaimed Christians. So basically Christianity is being wielded as a tool against wokeism, but then it's also creating a wedge against others, even if that's not the primary intent. And so, yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Well, I think your observation about what Yosef was talking about is a good one, where, it's the new lines. We definitely have a lot of metagelical energy going on now, where you're seeing groups that overtly practice what modernity sees as religion are coalescing, and it tends to be Judeo-Christian again. You look at, say, what happened around Peterson, even with his Daily Wire Bible seminar things. And I think part of this is because the main line is just so weak. No one, let's say, on the political left is looking to the main line for leadership. There's no, all of the, I'm not gonna even try to figure out what's going on with the papacy. Thank you. I can't comprehend it. And I think the jury's out on the first American Pope now. Everybody's just sort of watching him and, trying to read between the lines. But you would imagine, that if a figure like John Paul II were to arise now, that could be interesting, because such a leader could have the ability to coalesce a whole group of religious oriented people in the West towards some ideals. But the papacy is just sort of fence riding on how many different fences. So I don't know. But it does get to this question of institutions, of leadership, and to what degree. I think Michael is right that it does take a while because elites are a function of overall institutional reality. And evangelicals are in some ways just sort of too new for a lot of that. Evangelicals haven't been playing these games for very long, and we tend to have news cycle attention spans, whereas institutions, those that actually will shape, do still take time to, especially now, develop, because so many of them are more implicit than explicit. So I don't know. That was a little rambly.
I think the proper level for a lot of these discussions is really the Catholic bishops. So the Bishop Barron doing outreach with evangelicals is in a way more proper than, I mean, the Pope is dealing with the African church, the Chinese church, what's happening in Eastern Europe, what's happening in Western Europe. There's a lot going on. We should mostly be ignoring the Pope, not ignoring the Pope, but he should be less relevant in our salience landscape than the local bishop or sort of leaders that are at a lower level that are sort of engaging at this lower level. So for all the criticism Bishop Barron gets from some corners, that seems more like the proper ordering. And this, I feel like I feel like the evangelical thing will institutionalize or die, because that's what I think things tend to do. And you'll get more frameworks, which then you have someone to talk to institutionally, and then you can work some of these things out. But it's gonna take a little bit, and they may just look like corporate structures. And then the question is, do we want these local churches with these corporate management structures hiding behind, sort of playing quietly in the background, and how do we feel about that institutionally? Like the secret apostles sort of pulling the strings from behind.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry, I'm probably
no, but
being
that's
too
really helpful,
controversial.
because what is Word on Fire? Is it a Catholic order? Is it what is it? And then what does that make Bishop Barron? I mean, he's a
It's like
pope in some
it's
ways.
like the public front of the Catholic CIA. It's the public front.
Catholic CIA. Where's Grim Grizz when we need him?
I don't have a lot to add from Canada. We don't have any Christianity cultural power. This is a very American conversation, but along the Word on Fire thing, it's like everyone else. The organization of the church is driven pragmatically and not theologically. And I think that's to everyone's detriment. So this metagelical moment is kind of putting theology to the side. Like, we didn't solve any issues around the Eucharist, but we're all just going to, it doesn't matter anymore. We got bigger fish to fry or whatever. But if we keep making, I don't know, Word on Fire looks great now. Is it in 100 years? Is it the right decision to create these, whatever they are? I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, you just need to develop a theology of pragmatism and figure out what the theological basis for acting that way is.
Well, I want to give the Reformed folks in here a lot of credit, because we had this debate in our Signal chat, and I said, basically my point in the Signal chat, because I don't know Catholic history nearly as well as you do, PBK or Paul. I wasn't a cradle Catholic, but I know my local Catholics on the ground, and I am friends with many local normal Catholics, and I think I have a good sense of like the boomer generation and Gen X Catholics, like what they're thinking, like the typical. And when McMo, I had this, not even a debate, more of a discussion with McMo offline, where I was like, okay, the 5 solas, like if you just get rid of the word solely, like only, like all of those things are absorbed into how Catholicism is actually practiced. If you just get rid of the only, like the Bible is equally important with the magisterium now. It's really important. And we do, as Catholics, we say that, we call it the primacy of grace. We say God moves first. Like, you cannot save yourself. Like, God has to move first. Now, you have to take that hand, and that's also where the works come in. Like, we do believe it matters what you do, but like the primacy of grace is an accepted Catholic doctrine. So I said to McMo, and it's really a more general Reformed question, it's like has the entire world taken the best part of Reformed theology and made it its own. And the reformers are still trying to figure out how to be reformed, when in fact everyone is now somewhat reformed, except we still have the magisterium. Thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the work of the Protestant Reformation, Luther succeeded in helping the church reform, and the um no, I think your point is well made, Neil. I want to give Mark a chance here. He came late. I don't know if he knows what's going on. I don't know how many signal chats Luke has started. I'm in one now with Mark Parker. But I got rid of the link, Mark, because I'm gonna land. I'd like to land the stream at the half hour so I can get back home to my kids there. So.
I didn't know what was going on. So yeah, I stumbled in. I heard something Neil say, and I thought, oh, that's pretty good. And I think this is what I heard was there's a kind of Crusader Christianity that's kind of the culture war thing, and then there is what we might call the timeless Christianity that changes personal lives. I think the Chris. I mean, did I get that somewhat right? I know I'm not using your phrasing, Neil, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't even necessarily think most Christians are trying to drive a wedge between Christians and non-Christians. I just think that it's inevitable that as some identities become more salient, more prevalent in importance, like as an identity as American diminishes, an identity as Christian grows, that's going to push some people away and pull some people closer. So as these identities shift in their hierarchies and their priorities, inevitably it's going to, change how people think about one another.
well, there is religion has currency again, at least in some corners of American society. In the West in general, it seems to be happening in the UK, and I don't know about elsewhere, but at least online, that's the impression one gets. And that seems to be a religion of convenience. It's just a tool for climbers who want to get a little power or influence in the moment, and I'm guessing they'll ditch it as quick as they grabbed onto it if it stops paying out.
I think that's a little harsh, when we look
Well,
at.
that's what I do, Paul.
Well,
I'm
that's
harsh.
true. But when I look around the corner and I see how many people, you just look at Neil, who's, Neil is now a faithful Catholic. Chad is a faithful Lutheran. All around the corner, we've seen people who I would say none of us imagine they're doing it for the grift, but people are going to church, and people are taking faith seriously, and a number who are Orthodox. Luke Thompson, although Luke's always been a religious guy, but no, I think we are seeing something of a revival of interest in practiced Christianity.
But that's the return of attention. I mean, that's why it's got currency. Is it is happening? There is something happening.
Yes.
I'm talking about at the propheticity level in terms of by influencers and people, politicians and whomever, people who the Candace Owens of this world or what have you. I take these people
of all
as
examples to point to.
I take these people as basically they are religious by convenience.
Well, I don't know if I would be that dismissive, but at the same time, I think the questions of the questions that Paul is pointing to in terms of what is the relate. I don't think that J.D. Vance is insincere with respect to his faith, but what does it mean that J.D. Vance identifies as Catholic in terms of how does he relate to whatever we imagine Catholic institutions are. Because right now, I think you're right, though, Mark, that we have a lot of freelancers who sometimes, if it serves them, wear a lapel pin of a religion prominently. And I think for some of us, we recoil at that because we don't want people using what should be sacred as sort of pragmatic politics. So
identification is powerful, and it's if you start the participation, the Holy Spirit begins to work. You don't.
That's why I'm here.
You. So it's So I think while people come in with why do high school students go to the teenage ministry? Mostly the guys go because there's some girl there, and then a lot of them
blasphemy
actually learned something along the way, and so they didn't go in. They came in with these very teenage reasons for coming into church, but you get them into church every Sunday and then it starts to work on their life. So I just people come in with motives, but it's like trusting in God that he will use that and he will work through that. But I mean, but with also realizing you don't want to get manipulated by it. But I feel that like a predisposition of charity is very important as we welcome more people in.
But maybe weaker institutions allow the new convert a lot more power.
Weaker institutions like knockoff saving throws.
Oh, come on. Isn't Chad ordained enough in the TLC to do his own saving throws? Or
you have to be anointed.
Oh,
there ain't nothing but knockoff in the original. I don't disapprove of knockoff. I just call it out. So last time somebody tried, the channel went down. Be careful, Pastor Paul. So it occurred to me this weekend, Pastor Paul, that if it were to pass, that you felt like talking to Doug Wilson there, with the channel you have, if you were to be like, hey, I'd like to talk to Doug Wilson, there'd be people that heard it, that it would help facilitate it. And I thought I would take this opportunity to be like, I think Doug Wilson is ready to talk to me. He's got the atheist angle and the leftist official. We listen to newspaper angle. I'm sure he's got like a playbook for all your branches of Christianity. But is he ready for the conspiracy internet market? Does he have a pitch for people like me? Let's find out. So if you know Doug Wilson and can make it happen, Grim Grizz is looking for that man for a fringe encounter live. Maybe live. I don't care, but at least on my channel over on the YouTube.
Oh, I would love it. I would love it, Grizz. I would love it.
And if J.D. Vance is truly Catholic, then what happens when Peter Thiel comes up to him and is like, I'm totally the Antichrist, bro? Like, how does his Catholicism come into play in that scenario? Casino deck card of the show, sorry, is the deuce. It's the deuce of spades. Good to see everybody. Right. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, Grizz. All right, Sandy, what do you have to say? I want to land the plane here pretty quick.
Merry Christmas, Sandy.
Merry Christmas. It can be for another conversation you have, but in terms of where you started, some of the historical and looking at Christian nationalism and stuff, I know Phoebus mentioned nothing much to bring from Canada, but I've had a couple of awkward conversations because of talking to family that don't follow anything. And I'm wondering about those kind of conversations in some of the, the vein of what you're talking about bringing forward on Substack. Like, I track a lot of the, I don't know, apparently I track to political religious in some of the conversations with some people close to me. And I'm not sure how to, the solution was presented, then that doesn't hit the table. None of that hits the table. So, but then I'm also wondering in terms of, you look at the, time through history and who's been in power, and you were talking about, the state will manage the religion and et cetera, and you go through. Well, one of the things that I was trying to talk to family about was our Bill C9, which is amending the criminal code on hate speech and hate crimes. How then do you deal with things like that? And where's the line between just talking about it and commenting on people who in government who are talking about it? Like, I watched a couple of YouTube presentations, which speaking to a local political rep, I was saying they seemed immature, but the conclusion we came to was, people, when they know there's a camera, tend to play to the camera. So how do you also find out where your leaders are leading you? And how does that play into, are you going to write about things in the current? I know you write from an American perspective and I'm here in Canada, but I'm just curious about that.
I don't know if I have an answer for that with respect to the Substack. Part of the difficulty of democracy is that the leaders tend to chase the votes, which make democracies very responsive to larger spirits, egregores, principalities, and powers that are in the culture.
Right. And I was aware of that when they started bringing up concern from their local constituents who are parishioners in this, that, or the other church, and their fear of the government changing the Bible. So, and I'm kind of like, how did we jump from here to there?
Yeah. Canada,
they did it
Canada
in
is such
China.
What's that, Michael?
The Chinese government, they came out with like an official Bible that's got some pretty stark changes.
Oh, did they really? I haven't heard about
I
this.
guess. Yeah, I don't know. I've just seen some verses of it or whatever. But
isn't the King James a government authorized Bible?
Technically, in the 1600s, I believe it was. Yes, but it also says
early 17th century, to be specific. Yeah.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah. Stuart monarchy.
That would be the 1600s, early 1600s.
There you go,
17th
Mark.
century.
I love it. I love it. The authorized version. Authorized by whom?
Not by the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
So
right.
It's not part of the Substack. Love to chat sometime about Substack things too, but never mind if it's not.
All right.
Go home to family.
We forget.
We do forget.
That dread Christian nationalism goes deep.
It does. The relationship between church and whatever it is that state is. So, any final comments before I play a little branding and then close the stream?
No, just Merry Christmas, Paul. Did you survive the storms?
Yeah, we had a lot of blowing. But the roof stayed on, and that was a good thing. And nothing flooded seriously. So
that's good.
Yeah. How about you guys in Southern California? You got a little bit of news.
I just dodged it on the way home. Hours later, Brightwood flooded out, and we went right by it. And it just
really?
So yeah, so it was, and we're in for another round down here. Yeah. So we're getting a lot of rain.
But it's been a dry winter so far. So we are sort of behind, and we have to get that snowpack going and have water for another year, because here in California we get our water once a year, and if we don't get it, we start to get anxious.
Yep.
So
well, anyways, Merry Christmas to everybody.
All right, Merry Christmas.
God bless.
Final words, anyone else? Otherwise,
I'll give the self-promotion. So all chapters of my book have been recorded and are on YouTube, so people can listen to. So I did the reading for you with a very little bit of help from some other people, but so you can just listen to it now. So people want to check it out. And then when the last chapters are coming out, and then when the last one comes out, there's a link to just download the PDF too. So,
all right. And we have upcoming, we're going to have a conversation between myself and Paul Allen and Rod Hare about basic Christian institutions. I'm really looking forward to that conversation because I think Paul is right that institutions are really important. Without individuals, nothing changes. Without institutions, nothing lasts. So that old saw. So,
Michael,
all right.
we should talk about your economics chapters at some point. That's on my back burner. Things to do in January. Thank you for letting me participate. It's always fun.
All right, wonderful. All right, I think I'm going to do. It was so much fun having Chad come in, and I'd asked Chad because I knew this is the first Christmas with him and his wife and a baby. Babies change things; they really do. And so when Chad was talking this morning, I thought about his poem. So I will.
I have one more question. So Mark, my father-in-law, is coming tomorrow. Did the last segment of Southeastuary get released? The one where he made his little speech at the end there? Because I don't remember seeing it come out.
I don't know. You'll have to see if that was even recorded. But
I think it was on it was the one with you and John Van Donk talking about the future of estuary. So
that's where he made.
I think just told me it was recorded, but I haven't seen it. So
all right, well maybe you can put it out on your channel. So
if I can get all right,
you can get it. Yeah, talk to Jess. All right, so here's people will often ask in the comments, where'd that poem come from? The poem is from Chad, and I find it so poignant in terms of when I talk to people about the homes they grew up in and how they were raised in this market-driven consumerist society of the United States. So here it is, and then a little bit of dog bark.
Still I have it. There are moments I conveniently forget that I'm a 40-year-old man. The last vestiges of a ghost long dead. A ghost with a messiah complex. A messiah too lazy to rise or ascend. Happily hurt and hard. A hanger-on or haunting of a time past. A heroic dream of the harrowing of hell. Failure to launch. Cling to a life vest. Treading in spells that linger and last. Mom and Dad, righteous and mad, daydreamers with ghosts of their own. My memory of them stoic, looking with aims to pretend. Always on the brink of somewhere. Each a child dancing on the fence. On down the river. Dreamt in the sunshine. Saturday morning cartoons, the only Sabbath I knew. A disciple of Jim Henson and John Hughes. Worship in cathedrals where the Toys R Us, baptized in ball pits, a clown served the sacrament we eat, more Pepsi and Pizza Hut, say please, say cheese. Between Kurt Cobain, a scrambled cable screen, towers tumbling, Super Bowls and reality TV, the ghost is constitutionally unwilling and intrinsically unable to see and be seen, searching madly for attention to seek. But you could be anything. Never say never. If you've got nothing nice to say, don't say nothing, ever. Don't talk to strangers. See what I say. Just do it. You don't listen very well. do you? You don't do very well, do you? You're not looking too good, are you? Keep up. Appearances aren't what they seem. Will you ever grow up? You look like you're stuck. I think you took too much. Echoes the ghost within the host, who prays the dead bury their dead and stay buried in a fading dream.
Where are you here?
Oh, there I am. Hey.
Where are you? Where?
Got me?
Oh boy.
How you doing,
Yeah. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Come on, man.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Yeah.
Walk with my mama.
You walk with my mama.
Walk with me.
Walk with me too.
You walk with my mama.
Yeah.
Walk with me.
And walk with me too.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
I want Jesus.
Want Jesus.
Walk with me.
Walk with me. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. Hold my hand, Lord. Hold my hand. All along this Jesus journey. Hold my hand, Lord. And hold my hand.
Walk with Moses.
You walk with Moses.
Walk with me.
Walk with me.
You walk with Moses. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
While I'm home.
Yeah.
Jesus
journey.
I want Jesus.
I want Jesus to walk with me.
Say, walk with me, Lord. How y'all doing?
Walk with me.
Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me.
Walk with me.
I'm on my city
Yeah, Lord.
I want Jesus
I want Jesus
to walk with me.
to walk with me. Walk with David, a little shepherd boy. Yeah, you made him a great king. I know David shouted for joy. He walked with David, and he's a little shepherd boy. You made him a great king. And David shouted for joy.
That's right.
Oh, yeah. So walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. All along this Jesus journey. Walk with me, Lord. Walk with me. You gotta walk with me, Lord.
Yeah! That was rocking great, brother.
Oh, yeah.